should have taken the 5 extra minutes that I had on the video to get myself a little bit more ready, but I wanted to get reading. I had my coffee. I got it made finally. And I want to get to our book, which I don't even have in front of me. And not only is it not in front of me, but it's like going to be a challenge to get. This is Dr. Annette Feravich. We are here in the classroom. Look what I got back. Our chalkboard, which is exactly how it was left off. These are not based on size, but based on usage. No, they're not based on usage. They're based on size. Okay, we are reading a book by Kerry Kennedy. And the book is called Being Catholic Now. And we are on day 2 of our book. We read the introduction, but not the preface. And now we are reading about what Andrew Sullivan thinks about being Catholic now. Andrew Sullivan, born August 10th, 1963, is one of today's most provocative vocal and political commentators. Senior editor at The Atlantic and a columnist for the Sunday Times of London. He is also the editor of the Daily Dish. It's in italic. Look at it. It looks like Dish. And one of the most widely read political blogs on the web. Oh, Daily Dish is one of the most widely political blogs read on the web. Sullivan is known for his unusual personal political identity. He is HIV positive, gay, libertarian, a conservative often at odds with other conservatives, and a practicing Catholic. Yeah, you might be. I grew up in a small town in the English countryside and was always outside. My mother threw us out every morning as long as we were back by the time it got dark. It was a different world, and I always accepted that the beauty of the countryside that I lived in was a mark of something that I couldn't explain. It was more than what it appeared to be. Every May in my little church, we would bring in the blossoms for the month of Our Lady, and the celebration of unity of nature with God was something that I grew up breathing. I didn't have a fire and brimstone Catholic upbringing. I had a slightly hippy-dippy, lovey-dovey, post-Vatican II Catholic upbringing. Both my parents were born in England, but our lineage was from Western Ireland. We grew up as Catholics in a Protestant country, and I always felt marginalized to some extent through my faith, which absolutely strengthened it. You'd better defend your identity. I went to a Catholic primary school until age 10. I was supposed to go to Catholic secondary school, but the only school that would accept me was horrifying to my parents. I went to the Protestant school, which was a big deal for our family. My grandmother was terribly upset, but for my faith, it was the best thing they could have done for me. I might have rebelled against our austere Catholic secondary school. From the beginning, I felt I had to defend myself against these Protestants. And when you're fighting that fight, you assume the existence of God in the first place. So it sunk in. Growing up in England in the 1960s and 70s was pretty awful, depressing, tawdry, and church for me, just walking in there, was something beyond all this. There was something dark, mysterious, and beautiful beyond all those supermarkets. McDonald's, bad television, and strikes. You walk in as an altar boy and smell the different smell, feel the different air, and see the light refracted through different windows. It tells you this is not the rest of the world. There is a line from Larkin in my head. A serious house on serious earth this is. I got a very severe and clear signal that this matters. Don't you mess with this. Don't you belittle this. We weren't corralled or anything, but my family was very insistent that we take this seriously. I wanted to figure it all out. My confirmation saint was Thomas More. He was an absolute authoritarian in the Catholic Church, and I think in retrospect did some things that I find abhorrent. He was happy to send people to the stake. On the other hand, he also clearly placed his conscience at the center of his life. If he was asked to do something by all of the authorities that he lived up to, by the law of the land, by the very kingdom who he served, he'd still say no if his conscience said otherwise. He was both an authoritarian and a real rebel. He captured what it meant to be Catholic. So when I came to be confirmed, I picked him. I picked Thomas the Apostle. When I think about it. As a teenager, my Catholic identity was very important to me. It still is. People always ask me, in the last 10 years especially, why don't you just become an Episcopalian? My answer is, I would if I could. I don't really have a choice in this matter. I'd sooner become a Muslim. The ferocity of my upbringing and the nature of my conflict would mean embracing something that I defend myself against for 30 years. I've come to realize that my disdain for Protestantism was exaggerated, that I slipped into many of the fundamentalist traps that I've subsequently understood to be traps. Nevertheless, I'm a human being. We can't be remade overnight. I have nowhere else to go. This is absolutely my home. It's the only place I feel comfortable. Look at the polling. You'll find Catholics supporting the positions the Episcopalian Church already accepts, but that is not what my faith is about. We're asked, first of all, to believe that God exists, which, compared to what our position is on stem cell research, seems to me to be a much more fundamental issue. Second, we're asked to believe that God is love, which to my mind is a much bigger step. So if I'm prepared to believe all that, and in fact I find myself unable not to believe that, why would I leave on a trivial issue like whether women should be priests or not? Faith isn't like picking courses off a menu. It's a journey and it's a path. If your path and journey have been within one structure your entire life, then simply leaving isn't an option. I used to always go to St. Matthew's Cathedral in Washington, D.C. Cardinal McCarrick was a breath of fresh air. He's such an obviously Christian person. During the 2004 presidential election, McCarrick did something that didn't get much publicity. At the time, Cardinal Ratzinger, now Pope Benedict, was head of the Congregation for the Propagation of the Doctrine of the Faith. There was a meeting that the bishops convened and determined whether John Kerry or other leading Catholic politicians would be officially banned from receiving communion, and McCarrick was quite adamant in resisting any blanket policy. He won the day, thank God. I did not know that Cardinal Ratzinger was Pope Benedict. I mean, I don't follow the papal institution very closely. And so I've read a lot about Pope Benedict. Not a lot in comparison to what Catholics read. I've read some about Pope Benedict a while ago. And I know that now that I say that, that name is stuck in my mind, but I thought it was because of the other issues that Catholic priests have been known for. I apologize for that. But wasn't he out of Boston? No, he couldn't have been out of Boston. That doesn't make any sense, does it? No, because there's no American Pope. He was from Germany. Because he was our first non-Italian Pope. That I remember. I'm not 100% sure if he was from Germany, though. But it was much closer than people realize, and in fact, Ratzinger had sent McCarrick a letter in which he essentially said, go ahead, take the public stance, saying that anybody who doesn't have the exact position on abortion that we do will not be eligible for communion. McCarrick withheld the letter. That's what I am told. He just did not want to press the thing because that would have led to a genuine crisis. The Catholic bishops in this country, at least in plurality of them, at least a plurality of them, would have said no, and there would have been a huge fight with Rome. In the middle of an election, I think McCarrick's prudential decision was that it would have hurt the church more than it would have helped. He had already been told, but he ignored it. He buried it. It does matter when I disagree with the Pope. I've been trying to out-argue the hierarchy for 20 years on one particular subject. Their whole doctrine of sexuality is so fraught with internal contradiction. It's your job to ask yourself, what are they asking me to believe? I studied quite intensely the theological arguments about the impermissibility of anything except procreative, material, heterosexual sex and thought them through. I engaged the hierarchy at a rational level and came to the conclusion that they didn't actually make sense on their own terms, nor did they really speak truthfully to either the biological evidence and knowledge that we currently have about what human beings are, or to my own experience of what the phenomenon of homosexual orientation is. My obligation, therefore, as a Catholic, is to bring this forward and say, tell me where I'm wrong. The truth matters. And by and large, I've never experienced any hostility from my fellow Catholics as a gay man. When I walk into church, I'm one soul. I'm no more, no less than anyone else there. My politics, my gender, my orientation, anything else I leave behind seems to me to be left behind. The genius of Paul's Christianity is that we leave all that behind. It's an amazing liberation. I'm able to say to myself as a gay man, and maybe this is an incredible cheat on my part, I know the church isn't right. I let it go. Catholics throughout the last 2 millennia have lived in the church when it is doing things they don't agree with. They either go insane or they let it go. Work from within or concentrate on what matters. What is the gospel of Jesus, the sacraments that incarnate the message of Jesus, and the personhood of Jesus. Well said, well said. They try to live their lives as they should, as we're asked to live. The gospel of Jesus is constantly saying, don't lose sight. That's really all that matters. All these laws, let them all go if you love. If you have them all, but you don't love, it means nothing. And you know, every moment of the day, that's a challenge. This is so well said. It just speaks to me volumes. It speaks directly to me, because that's exactly how I've always felt about faith. We know that we haven't seen a true religion because of the fact that would mean that God was here with us and we wouldn't have the problems and the criminal behavior and the organized crime that we see on a real massive level. So, I really hate that buzz in the background with that heater on, but oh, it gets so cold in here. real house. Okay, although I used to have the heater on too there as well. So what am I talking about? I don't know. Being Catholic now. That's it. When I look around me at all the priests, I know so many of them are gay. You've demonized to the very core of who you are, the very impulse to love another person. It's not like you've demonized because you're not smart enough. It's love at its core that is being attacked, your emotional identity and dignity as a person. They're basically telling me I'm sick, that I can't be cured, and that I'm to live my life alone forever. It's deeply psychologically damaging, and I think a lot of my own issues as an adult with sex and love are connected to that damage. I've been in therapy for a long time. Someone once asked me, do you think the church will change its mind? Not in my lifetime. I came to a point where I don't need them to relinquish. I wish they would, but I'm reconciled to that. As Catholics, we're taught not to judge our positions on their success, but rather on whether they're true or not. All you can do is ask yourself deep in your soul, am I genuinely right on this? The staggering moment for me in the Gospels is the moment on the cross when Jesus is about to die. He openly doubts whether he's not been mistaken about all of it. My God, why have you forsaken me? Oh, how many times I've thought the same thing, that even Jesus Christ in his last words, although those weren't his last words, in his last words, he is questioning. He's questioning God. He's questioning all of it. And this is Jesus on the cross at the moment of his greatest triumph. Almost his last words are, did I get all of this wrong? Am I really alone? Oh. If you were creating a legend of a great hero who died, you wouldn't interpolate a moment of weakness at the end. I think it's real. I think it happened. That's faith. Right there. Right there. I think it's real. I think it happened. I think it's real. I think it happened. And his faith, Andrew Sullivan's faith, I think it's his faith. He thinks it's real. He thinks it happened. And that's all that it's supposed to take. That's all that it's supposed to take for real faith. And it's very human. So doubt and fear and imperfection are at the core of our faith. One shouldn't be afraid of doubt as long as it's part of a process in which you're trying to figure out what's true. The only person who can ever answer that is you, alone with God. The Martha and Mary gospel passage is the one that's always been with me and really kept me sane during my experience of HIV. I was basically told you're going to die, and my best friend and my boyfriend were told at the same time. It was a very grim time, and the day after I found out, I found myself drawn to the passage again. It's a very simple story. Jesus shows up unannounced, and Mary and Martha have those two opposite responses to his coming. Martha does what really we all should do, make sure that make sure that dinner is fixed and everything is okay. And Mary just sits at Jesus' feet and listens. Jesus has this beautiful sentence, which is, first of all, Martha, Martha. He repeats her name twice, which is a sign of intimacy. You fret and are anxious about so many things, but only one thing matters. Mary has chosen the better part. Don't take it away from her. He's not even judging Martha. He's sympathizing with her and her perplexity, her distraction, her anxiety. And he isn't even telling her not to do what she's doing. He's just saying, Lord, look, Mary, look, Mary's here and she's with me, and that's all that really matters. When you think about it from the context of history, here's the Son of God walking into your house and you go to the kitchen. Why are you missing a second of the presence of Jesus? How many people in human history have that opportunity? Then there's this question. Why does he mean that? What does he mean that only one thing is necessary? This is a big thing for Jesus to say. What was the coded message of this? I think it's hiding in plain sight, meaning simply Mary is being with me, which is being here for each other now. I love her, she loves me, and we're spending time together. The message of this incarnation is that God is with us. I think we become so used to the idea that God is with us that we don't realize how revolutionary an idea that is. It's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult. I think it's difficult. If somebody said God is standing before you, what would you do, right? Mercy Me has a song about that, what will we do when we see your face? It's not exactly the title of it, but that one has always perplexed me. That story has always perplexed me as well, because what would you do? You know what? I'd make sure a good meal was on the table. That's what I would do. I've just heard about 10 weeks or whatever, 8 weeks or something like that of scripture on making meals with Christ or taking meals with Christ over at our church online. And so, no, are you kidding me? You know what I would make sure I would do? I would make sure that I had a delicious meal on the table. And I'd probably be running late, and I'd probably need some help as well. I don't know. But on the other hand, I've said that my husband was very Jesus Christ-like. I've said he's Jesus Christ. I've said it. I said it. And did I pay that kind of respect and have that kind of admiration for him if I really believed he was Jesus Christ? I tried so hard. Jesus Christ, he was impossible. As it would be to live with Jesus Christ. It was impossible. I don't know if there's a heaven and a heaven and hell. When my friend Patrick was dying, he had this conversation. He said to me, I'm scared. And I said to him, what are you scared of? He said, I'm scared that there'll be nothing. There's nothing to say, so that when someone literally is confronting their death, there is nothing to say to that when someone literally is confronting their death. He was 30 years old. All I did was hold him. That's all I could do. I had no answer. I'm absolutely convinced that I felt Patrick's spiritual presence after his death very powerfully. I believe that Patrick didn't die. Everybody seems to have a different analysis of what it meant for Jesus to be resurrected. Some of them see him in the vision of another person. Then there are moments when he seems to just disappear completely. There's not a scientific explanation of what this resurrection means, except to say that his disciples clearly experienced his existence after death in as vivid a way as they experienced him in life. In a much more trivial way, I think, because obviously Patrick wasn't Jesus, I felt him around. I still feel him around, and I pray to him and think of him. In that sense, these are mysteries that I don't know. I don't believe it's the end, but I don't know fully and could not articulate what it can and will mean. I think it means some sort of unity with God's love, but I certainly don't believe in some sort of reward system. I don't believe in anybody who claims to know. I'm convinced death is not the end. I agree, absolutely. Which is why we shouldn't be so afraid of it, right? Because I think it's a seamless transformation. I think I'm an example of that. I do. The fundamental values, although I'm wondering why my husband wasn't, or if he is, what's going on here. The fundamental values that I was taught was twofold: to love one's neighbor and to tell the truth. Those were two very, very clear injunctions. I've been better with the latter rather than the former. So, for example, when people would ask me occasionally, how can you be openly gay and Catholic? My response has been, I'm openly gay because I'm Catholic, because I was taught not to lie, and because I was taught to have nothing to fear from my church, from the truth, or from God. Amen, Andrew. Amen. I've long believed that Jesus had no politics, that there were no politics in the Gospels. It's quite remarkable how Jesus avoids politics, even when he's in a very political system and a very political moment with extreme political pressures. He's almost fanatically devoted to not taking a position because he's obsessed with telling people that's the wrong question. The question is this: how are you living now? Not how the system could be reformed, not how the world could be made a better place. You serving the poor. It doesn't talk about service to the poor as an abstract construct. He says, give everything to the poor. How one constructs a political order will depend upon different questions about what's practicable in a fallen world to minimize the harm we do to one another. Jesus' call to us is to serve one another now. He cites various situations in which we're supposed to help: the homeless, the imprisoned, the sick, and the poor. Your obligation as a human being, as a follower of Jesus, is to alleviate that suffering immediately. And again, we can't live up to this. We don't. We walk past it every day. But I don't think that within Christianity there is an argument that the government should be redistributing wealth from one group of people to another, or that the government has a responsibility to do this, that, or another. I can see how people can infer that, but that step is a problematic one. We can construct politics entirely on realistic grounds, on the basis of wicked human nature, and then keep this government as limited as possible. And then Jesus's message is for you to transform yourself, not anybody else. There is a great documentary called Saint of 9/11 about Father Michael Judge. He was the firefighters' chaplain who died at the World Trade Center. This is a man who never had a checking account, who spent his life walking the streets. You'll see the face of Jesus in everything he did. There is one story that had me in tears because it reaches the heart. When AIDS first hit New York City, the first people started showing up at St. Vincent's with this strange illness, and they were all gay. Judge himself was gay, but very much on the down low. His impulse as a Franciscan was to go there to be with the sick, and as he walked up to one of their hospital rooms, he said their first impulse upon seeing a man of the church was flinching away because they felt, oh God, these people are coming to judge me, and they wouldn't let him in the room. When they fell asleep, he went into their rooms, lifted their bottom of the sheet to expose their feet, and he put oil on them. They would wake up and see him doing what Jesus did, and the cycle was broken. This service, it was a beautiful moment of Christian love. He won them back slowly. These people were going insane. They didn't know why they had lesions. They started losing weight and couldn't absorb anything. They had no drugs to deal with any of these sudden new illnesses, which they'd never seen before, because the immune system had always beaten them back. And to be able to come into that situation, diffuse it, and give them composure, calm, peace, and love, that makes me proud to be a Catholic. That sure is a wonderful story. That sure is, and I certainly can see many, many interesting correlations with the way that I think and I believe. And it's also one of the reasons why I've called myself more of it politically, more of a socialist, because I think, and not a national socialist party, but like Marxist socialism and spreading the wealth. But it makes such a good point about not trying to make these political arguments and really trying to stand up more for what is moral or immoral. It's such a tough road. It's a tough road. But guess who we get to hear from next? Bill O'Reilly. All right, so join me tomorrow for day 176 of the classroom. You have been here through the end, you big egg. What do you call that? Egg. Goose egg. That's what it is. You big goose egg out there. Yeah, this is Dr. Annette Feravich. Thanks for joining me, and stay tuned. Bill O'Reilly is tomorrow while we're going through our book, Being Catholic Now. There's such a part of me that thinks I already did this book, but I don't think I could have, but I could have. This is Dr. Annette Feravich, or at least part of it. I'm not sure if I did or not, but Bill O'Reilly's coming up, and it's worth a second read, even if I did. Thanks for joining me here in the classroom. Now, I'm going to try and get, even though it's so dark and cloudy today, April 2nd. Today was my mom's birthday. Thanks so much for joining me. Got our chalkboard back here in the classroom. I'll see you tomorrow. That's not what I want. I can't see what I want. I'll see you tomorrow.